Welcome back. I just want to make a small disclaimer. I would have totally redone this as one video, but after watching the silly things my little son was doing on those videos, I just thought maybe it would bring about just some lightness to our experience right now. Anyhow, the significance of my study, working with at-risk adolescents, dealing with self-regulation and a movement intervention, in this case basketball, the significance is that I've found some of the gaps are around more research being needed, working with adolescents in a school-based setting. It is their natural environment. A lot of the adolescents and families in need do not get services, and so being in an environment that is natural to them really allows for the accessibility. Research suggests, as I said before, physiological, psychological, academic benefits come from physical activity, so it supports why I would use that intervention. Recommendations for future research indicate that allowing adolescents to have choice over the activity helps with their participation in it and self-regulation. And in terms of Baxter Junior High, most of the kids there are really into football and basketball. I could survey and see what they're into and go from there. So that's something I'm considering, but I already know basketball is something that really works for them. Knowledge is scarce about how the process of social discourse affects adolescent mental health. There's a lot of, counselors, teachers, parents are saying, principals, vice principals, people are saying, adults are saying all kinds of things, and adolescents are trying to make up their mind about who they are in that process. So I think having the reports of all these different people not only makes it more systemic, as I said, but also allows for all the voices to come together and for youth to have a place to speak of who they are, who they're trying to be, what their goals are, what they're trying to do. And as well, much of the past research compares adolescents to adults. Interventions are needed that directly affect adolescent judgment, decision-making, self-regulation. Goal setting, self-recording, self-reflection have all been shown to improve learning through motor activities. So there is a link between that and self-awareness, which is linked to self-regulation, being in tune with where one's at, allows for better self-regulation, decision-making, and performance in turn. So let's see here, self-regulation, externalizing and internalizing problematic behaviors have a link. Motor activity and academic learning, I think I've mentioned. So as far as my sample or what I'm imagining at this point, I see some of the limitations being narrow sample. A lot of the students are African American, followed by Latino and Caucasian. That might have some factors that contribute to that. Maybe a small sample. Some of the literature review speaks about the factors that contribute to becoming at risk to delinquency and academic failure. Looking at that to get a firm base of what my population is that I'm working with. As well, I'm looking at emotion regulation and decision making, which is what I'm trying to measure and get at and hypothesize that has a difference in academic learning. I'm also looking at the current interventions that have shown to be effective with at-risk adolescents, specifically in a school setting, which are limited. And I'm also looking at motor movement interventions in a school setting with at-risk adolescents. And there's a lot of research out there about alternative therapies, more creative arts therapies, playing chess with students. A lot of the art therapies have shown to be very favorable among the female adolescent population. Drawing, things like that, as well as movement, meditation, dance. I find that with the population I work with, basketball is already in place, and it's something that I'd like to work with. But there are many other creative arts therapies that have shown to be effective. I have a demographics page that maybe you'd like to look at. At this time, Baxter Junior High is academically unacceptable, a level 1. There are 63.9% at-risk students. Economically disadvantaged students measures up to 88.3%. And so a lot of those are the factors that contribute to delinquency in the literature. And at-risk adolescent titles and so forth. And it makes sense if the environment is creating scenarios or issues where adolescents are distracted by other things, they're not really able to focus on all the changes that are happening within themselves, mediated by what's happening with their peers, and somehow focus on what's happening in the classroom. So there's a bit of a prioritizing in a different way than I think is set up for adolescents, and that's something I'm noticing in this context. But the methodologies I'm looking at are pre-post-test control group design, and this would be a pilot initially, 5 qualitative questions to participants as well, looking at what is making a difference. The experimental group in the design would be, as research has suggested, groups of 4 or 5 to be a good sample. I have 32 participants, which I think gets at the quantitative part of it. But groups of 4 randomly selected from a disciplinary alternative education program and in-school suspension program. The control group would be all of the students in the detention alternative education program plus the in-school suspension who have permission slips signed to have services with me. And they would receive all of the pre- and post-test measures, parent-teacher ratings, along with a solution-focused therapy. The only part that they would be missing is the experimental intervention group part, which would be the basketball. And the pre- and post-tests are 2 measures constructed from SRM-DM, which is a self-regulation model of decision-making. It's a 20-item questionnaire from the DMCI Decision-Making Competency Inventory, and a 7-item questionnaire from the LASSI HS, the high school version, Learning and Study Strategies Inventory. This is by Miller 2000 and Miller and Barnes 2001. And there's also, I'm including 5 qualitative questions to participants asking about focus and group identity. The school report of grades and behavior scores pre and post intervention will be something I look at. Currently at Baxter Junior High, they have measures for behavior as U, unsatisfactory, N, needs improvement, S, satisfactory. And I need to get some interviews with teachers to be able to classify and understand what entails those measures. So the basketball intervention I have here for about 8 weeks. The research points to 6 to 8 weeks. It points to a lot of the indications for future research point to letting the intervention go longer in order to really measure academic grades and behavior. And parent-teacher ratings would be a questionnaire as well for that. The procedure would include the IRB, the pre-test, post-test, parent-teacher feedback, 4-on-4 half-court basketball games for 20 minutes, which research includes. Midway in the 4th week, there would be qualitative questionnaire asking about the focus and group identity. Post 8 weeks, we would follow up with the post questionnaires and looking at grades and behavior, parent-teacher feedback. There would be terms defined, of course, and lots of bibliography. And being at 10 minutes and 40 seconds, I'm going to end. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you. I hope everyone is doing well, and good luck.